Okay, so for today, I'm just going to make a review video for the progress check. I have one made for the practice FRQ. I am just trying to upload it and get that situated and figured out. So here is this. Let me just go and go through this really quickly. Which of the following best describes the aggregate demand curve? All right, C, it is a curve that shows the level of spending by consumers, businesses, the government, and the foreign sector at different price levels. The foreign sector meaning net exports. So if we are importing more than we're exporting, that actually is going to have a negative impact on aggregate demand, but that's just kind of what that means. So again, all components of GDP, as I mentioned before. Number 2, which of the following explains the relationship between the price level and real output along the aggregate demand curve? That is C. At a lower price level, domestic goods will become less expensive compared to foreign goods, which causes an increase in spending on domestic goods. Okay. Basically, yeah, it just means things get cheaper, so we buy more stuff. All right. So don't let that get more complicated than it needs to be. That's why, just like with the demand curve being downward sloping, aggregate demand, if everything is cheaper, people are going to be able to buy more stuff that's produced domestically. Number 3, the government of Euroland is considering increasing government spending to avoid a recession. What is the most likely effect on aggregate demand in Euroland? E, there will be a rightward shift in the aggregate demand curve. They're doing expansionary fiscal policy, shifting aggregate demand to the right. Number 4, assume the marginal propensity to consume is 0.75. What will happen if government spending increases by $100 billion? E, real output will increase by a maximum of $400 billion. You would do the multiplier, 1 over 0.25, first because it's a spending multiplier, and you multiply 4 times 100, maximum of $400 billion. Number 5, according to the expenditure multiplier, that's another word for the spending multiplier, if the marginal propensity to consume is greater than 0, a $1 change in autonomous expenditures will result in which of the following? E, a greater than $1 increase in aggregate demand for goods and services. Number 6, use the table to answer the question. Using disposable income and consumption data in the table above, calculate the value of the marginal propensity to consume and the marginal propensity to save. So income goes up by 1,000, spending goes up by 600. You just do, yeah, that's 60%. Okay, 600 is 60% of 1,000. Marginal propensity to consume equals 0.6. Marginal propensity to save is 0.4. Okay, that's that formula for calculating MPC versus MPS. Number 7, in an economy where wages and prices are sticky, which of the following will happen as a result of an increase in the price level? Sticky wages is simply that wages are slow to change, meaning they're slow to rise when things get more expensive, and they're slow to come down if things get cheaper. I think gas has gotten more expensive recently, probably haven't gotten a raise to account for that. Okay, so when that happens, B, there will be an upward movement along the short and aggregate supply curve, and real output will increase because prices have gone up. Number 8, the imposition by the United States of a tariff on imported steel from the European Union will likely have what impact on the short and aggregate supply curve in the United States? D, will cause the short and aggregate supply curve to shift left. You're making steel, which is an input for manufacturing, more expensive, thus meaning it's more expensive for businesses to produce stuff, decreasing the amount of stuff they can produce. And stuff is a scientific term, in case you didn't know. Number 9, if nominal wages are fixed by labor contracts, then which of the following explains why the aggregate supply curve is upward sloping? D, an increase in the price level will increase profits and production. Okay. Number 10, which of the following? Okay, so just to explain number 9 real quick. Basically, if prices go up for stuff, businesses can sell it, make more money, increase profits. They're not having to pay their employees more because wages are fixed. Okay, that one's a little tricky. You will not see a question like that on the test. Number 10, which of the following is illustrated by the long-run aggregate supply curve and the production possibilities curve? B, maximum sustainable capacity. Okay, potential output is where it should be. Now, you can't exceed your potential in the long-run aggregate supply curve. That's a little bit different than production possibilities curve, but that's essentially what they're kind of mean together. Number 11, suppose a nation opens borders to the free flow of workers from other nations. How would this event likely affect the long-run aggregate supply curve and the production possibility curve of the nation? B, both curves will shift to the right because you have an increase in the quantity of human laborers, right? You have an increase in the number of people that are able to work and make stuff. Therefore, both curves would shift to the right. You could potentially make more for the long run supply curve, and your production possibilities would go up because you have more people that are working and producing things. Number 12, suppose that the prices of labor and inputs to production are fixed in the short run but not in the long run. What is the consequence of this flexibility in the long run? A, the long run aggregate supply curve is vertical. There's no trade-off between inflation and unemployment in the long run. Okay, so that's why the LRAS is vertical. Number 13, which of the following is true about the equilibrium real output in the aggregate demand aggregate supply curve in the short run? D, equilibrium real output can be above, equal to, or below full employment, meaning potential output. All right, number 14, now we get to do graphs. All right, use the graph to answer the question. Which of the following accurately describes the state of the macroeconomy if it's operating at the intersection of AD1 and SRAS2? AD1 is here, SRAS2 is there, so this would be the equilibrium point right there. Okay, that would mean that we are in a recession, operating below full employment and is in a short run, but not long run equilibrium. Okay, to be at long run equilibrium, you have to be equilibrium at any point along the long run aggregate supply curve. Number 15, use the graph to answer the following questions. Which of the following is true when an economy is operating at the intersection of aggregate demand 2 and short run aggregate supply curve 2? All right, so we are right here now. All right. E, the economy is in short run and long run equilibrium. That's the only thing that's true out of this. All right, so just if you see a question like this, make sure you're just following along with what they're asking. Number 16, assume that stock prices and home values have increased, raising household wealth. At the same time, productivity increased due to new technology. What is the likely short-run impact on the economy? So we have a double shift. Okay, aggregate demand is going to increase because people feel wealthier. They're going to want to go out and buy more stuff. And short-run aggregate supply curve is going to shift to the right. So we know, right, shifts right, resulting in higher output and indeterminate price level because they don't tell you how much each of them shifted by. Okay, just like a double shift on the supply and demand curve. Do you remember those from way back in the day? Number 17, assume the economy of country A is in long-run equilibrium, which the following will happen in the short run in country A if one of its major trading partners, country B, experiences a recession. If that happens, B, aggregate demand will decrease and the price level will decrease. The reason why is because exports will go down to that country, right? Thus making our aggregate demand curve shift to the left. Number 18, country X is currently in long-run macroeconomic equilibrium. If the country's economy experiences a significant increase in the price of energy, a major input in production, which of the following will occur in the short run? That would be C. The short-run aggregate supply curve will shift to the left, and the actual rate of unemployment will exceed the natural rate of unemployment. So energy prices get more expensive, businesses have to cut back on production, shifting the short-run aggregate supply curve to the left, thus putting us in a stagflation. Number 19, assume an economy is currently at full employment. Which of the following best describes the long-run adjustments that will occur in the economy following a negative aggregate demand shock with no government intervention? D, nominal wages will decrease, short-run aggregate supply curve will increase until full employment is restored. That gets back to the self-correcting aggregate demand aggregate supply model. Okay. Number 20, use the graph to answer the following questions. We're back on the graph. Suppose the economy is in a recession. In the absence of government policy to restore the economy to full employment, how will the economy adjust in the long run? So we're starting off here. Okay, we're in a recession. When that happens, wages are lower. Eventually, businesses are going to want to hire more people because wages are lower and they can start producing more stuff for cheaper, causing short aggregate supply curve to shift to the right. Number 21, if the natural rate of unemployment exceeds the actual rate of unemployment, which of the following will occur in the long run in the absence of government intervention? In the long run, out of all these different choices, nominal wages will eventually increase as the economy rebounds and as it self-corrects. Okay. The rest of these are not correct necessarily, okay, in the long run. Number 22. That's a bad question. We will not see a question that's like this on the test, I'll tell you, because that's tricky, because I could also see E also being correct. The short and aggregate curve will shift to the right. So you won't see a question that's that pointed about a self-correcting graph. Number 22, suppose an economy is operating above full employment. Which of the following fiscal policy actions and resulting changes in aggregate demand will move the economy back towards full employment? So above full employment, we have more people working than should. Okay, so we're in an inflationary gap. That's kind of tricky because it's not above the full employment rate. It's just above full employment, meaning we have more people. You got to be careful with that one. So C, you increase taxes, you do contractionary fiscal policy, which will shift the aggregate demand curve to the left. Number 23, which of the following represents an appropriate fiscal policy for the given economic conditions? Out of all of these, E, a contractionary fiscal policy is appropriate to reduce inflation when there's an inflationary gap. All the others are not appropriate based on the situation. Number 24, the government of Olympia is considering a fiscal policy action to slow the economy and curb inflation. If marginal propensity to consume is 0.8, which of the following responses correctly identifies a policy action that would help the government achieve its goal and the impact of that action on Olympia's real GDP? D, decreasing government spending by $10 billion decreases real GDP by a maximum of $50 billion. All the other things would not fit with what they're trying to do there. Now, number 20, I mentioned this in one of the lecture videos, so you need to make sure you watch those. We did not talk about automatic stabilizers in class, but 25 is B. What is an automatic stabilizer? It is a program or policy that counteracts the business cycle without any new government action. Okay, so for example, unemployment insurance is an automatic stabilizer. If we have a lot of people suddenly lose their job, we have unemployment insurance programs that help give them some money to keep them afloat. We don't have to pass any new laws for that to happen. Now, during the COVID fiscal policy response, they increased the amount of money going to people that were on unemployment, but that was passed, but they still were getting unemployment. 26, which of the following best explains how income taxes can moderate a business cycle during an expansion? That is A, tax payments increase automatically as GDP rises, which dampens consumption spending. Okay. Number 27, how will automatic stabilizers affect the economy during a recession? A, they will shift the aggregate demand curve to the right, increasing real output. So, all right, hopefully that helps. If you have any questions, let me know. But if not, good luck on your exam.